This is Progman Rob for Powerofmetal.dk. Here's my interview with the legendary guitarist, Steve Hackett.
Hello, Rob. It's Steve Hackett.
Hello, sir. How are you?
Yeah, very well. How are you?
Very good. Thank you. Thank you for taking the time to talk to me. I appreciate it.
That's a pleasure. And I know, whereabouts are you based? Because I've got DK here.
Yeah, well, I write for Powerofmetal.dk, Danish website, but I'm in the U.S. actually.
Oh, okay, that's fine. I realized it was the U.S. because of the code, but
yeah.
I wanted, fine, okay, but it's Power of Metal, and I know that, yeah. So,
yeah, it all makes sense. The weird world of the internet. I got the gig with them. I'm actually on the East Coast, Albany, New York, in the U.S.
Right.
So.
Okay.
But anyway.
Sure.
Before we talk about the new album Wolflight, which comes out March 30th in Europe and April 7th in the U.S., I wanted to ask you. Now, you've been quite busy the last few years touring in support of Genesis Revisited 2. Did you anticipate it being as popular as it was?
No, I didn't. I didn't think it was going to be as popular as it was. It just seemed to go ballistic, and it's been extraordinary. We played to packed houses, everywhere, and in some cases we put in extra gigs because of it. I'm just about to do South America, in fact, with that same show, although ostensibly this year I originally said I was going to do nothing but my own stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Bruce Willis came to the show in New York, which was extraordinary. I didn't realize he was a fan of any of that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
That was extraordinary and fantastic. So I got to meet him and talk about music. It's extraordinary, isn't it? But a lot of people are fans of that early era of Genesis. I think of it as the early to mid period because there was a difference. When I first joined,
sure.
We were playing to kind of three men and a dog, and then we ended up doing arenas. For the last 2 years, I was with the band, but I've always felt I've had a great deal of affection for the music and pride that we wrote stuff that goes on, and I suspect it'll probably go on long after we've gone, all of us,
Sure.
And I felt the time was right, as there seemed to be no chance of getting the original team to reconvene.
Right.
The team that wrote it seemed to have handed it on, to another generation entirely, and I thought I can't let all the tribute bands have all the fun. I want to do this stuff again because I love it, and I remember the struggles that we had to make it work back in the day. To talk people into getting a Mellotron and a synth and getting our own light show and trying to get everyone to see it my way. Me and Frank Sinatra. But of course, everyone had strong views about the way it should be. And,
sure.
We all obviously ended up going our own direction, but I think that we all took our muses with us.
Sure.
And stayed in music, and I do believe all of us are still making a noise for a living, which is not bad after so many years.
No, that's pretty good, isn't it? I mean, it's
pretty good.
It must have been kind of interesting to revisit kind of your past night after night. I mean, like you were saying, it's kind of you've kind of. It's always almost like, and I'm going to come up with probably a terrible analogy, but it was when Dio used to play a lot of old Sabbath tunes when he was on his own because he said, well, who else is going to do it?
Yes.
And it's kind of
I understand that.
Similar situation with you and the Genesis material. I think it's important.
Well, it is important. I think that when I first left the band, I really avoided playing Genesis material. think apart from, I played Horizons, which is something that I wrote on my own anyway, even though we used to credit everything to the entire team. Right. I figured that was fair game, but apart from that, I pretty much distanced myself. I would occasionally do a song from Selling England by the Pound. What was it now? I Know What I Like.
Yep.
And then over years, people said to me, Firth Frith is my favourite guitar solo of all time. And then you can only hear that so many times before you're either incredibly flattered and think, maybe it's a good idea that I should wheel that out, dust it off, and do that. And then you kind of do a quick reverse into thinking, if we do that, perhaps we should do the whole song. I used to just do the solo from it, and it's just a little bit of that. But I figured over time that what fans wanted was not an abbreviation and a segue, but they wanted the full works, if possible, with the piano introduction. So I thought, let's give them the works. You get the full song.
Sure.
I've so far resisted the idea of going out and doing a whole album.
Right.
Because I know that's the popular way of doing it. But I think that the weaker tunes should really give way to stronger tunes from other albums. That's how I see it. Not everything is a masterpiece from every album.
Sure.
And there's sufficient good material there, and I think great tunes from every album, if I may say so. And so it's those, the ones that still resonate with me. And so far I've not had audiences complain that I've included something. If they complain, it's because, yes, they want me to do the whole of Lamb Lies Down on Broadway, and that's pretty tricky.
Yeah, it is.
Because that runs contrary with my selective approach.
Yeah, I mean, you have to want to play what you're playing live, because I think fans would pick up on the fact that some of it might seem disingenuous if you weren't really into it and weren't really passionate about it, and it's very obvious that you are.
Right. Yeah. Yes.
Now the fans obviously demanded that you extend the tour. So how much did that whole process kind of set Wolflight back?
Well, it took me longer because I would say the album took probably about 2 years, but that's 2 years of pretty constant touring, and so I would go in for odd days, and towards the end I would go in for weeks at a time, but I was very aware that time was always of essence, and I was running out of time if I was going to do anything that was not archival, and I didn't want to be known in my dotage as someone who just reopened the doors to the museum and invited everyone in, marvellous though those old exhibits are, I think. I wanted it to be part of what I do, and not the thing that I've abandoned the idea of doing solo stuff. I don't think there's any point, because there's a lot of that early stuff I did myself that was received at least as well by audiences, if not better in some cases.
Sure.
I have to say, with my hand on my heart, I'm proud of that stuff. It's hard to compete with the sales of 130 million Genesis albums, but in a way, it's a bit like shadowboxing. There's no point competing with yourself.
Right.
You might as well just embrace it. So,
accept it. Yeah.
I decided to re-record that stuff, so that people would have at least two versions: the originals and the way I play it with the experience and the technology of now. So it's all done with love.
Exactly. Now, when did you start writing Wolflight specifically? You said so. It was about 2 years ago. You've been working on it for 2 years. Was that when the writing actually started?
I think so. Yes, it would be round about that time. I think all writing, whether it's good, bad, or indifferent, it starts with a doodle.
Mm-hmm.
If you're lucky, you hear fully formed melodies that come straight from the subconscious or the world of dreams. And in many cases, I waited for that to happen.
Mm-hmm.
Mine is an emotional process rather than a cerebral one.
Sure.
I'm not trying to create indecipherable or impenetrable equations for people to work out.
Sure.
I'm not trying to do difficult music. What I'm trying to do is surprising stuff that borrows from across the board. So there's a pan-genre approach. Everything's fair game. I'm less interested in originality than I am authenticity. I want the music that I hear from someone to be really heartfelt.
Right.
And I can think of somebody, for instance, Joe Bonamassa,
mm-hmm.
whose work I like very much. I like him as a guitarist. And he does for me in recent years what early guitarists did for me when I was first hearing blues. And although we know where it's going, it's done with passion and verve. So in a way, I think when I sort of wander into areas that have been handed over to the orchestra, our small orchestra that gets tracked up endlessly, that to me, I'm quite happy to borrow from music that tells a story. Some of the work of Grieg,
mm-hmm.
The influence of folk music on Grieg and the elemental aspect of that. So I start seeing a parallel between some of the elemental work of Grieg. Perhaps it's literally the volatile weather in those cold Nordic
mm-hmm.
regions. And I've certainly experienced some of it. I was in Iceland recently, where it was so cold, having a marvellous time indoors, but outdoors, seeing some of the most magnificent sights. Literally couldn't open your eyes because you just cry with the cold.
Oh God! It's been cold here too, so I can relate to that. But yeah,
you relate to that, yeah. When the wind is so powerful that you just cannot open your eyes to. Even wearing glasses, you can't open your eyes to focus on anything. So, yes, I need Scott of the Antarctic's goggles for that. But those regions and the orchestral music that comes from Mother Russia and somewhere between this influence of France and Russia, the mixture that was Tchaikovsky and. Mm-hmm. And France and Poland that was Chopin and Grieg. All these guys have influenced quite a bit of the little cameo appearances of orchestra mm-hmm. and choir that crop up on the thing. So, but then I'm influenced by blues and rock and pop and world stuff and folk music.
So that
where does it stop?
There's a lot of different musical directions basically on this on Wolflight is what you're saying then. Exotic.
Yes, a lot of different directions, and I had the idea that different teams of people could take over from each other. They could interrupt each other the whole time. So I could stop the song. Mm-hmm. You could have the camp, the sort of a folk song around the campfire sort of sound to it, and then interrupt it with an orchestra that sound like they come from India, and as I say, the tar from Azerbaijan, mm-hmm. playing in a style called Mugham, mm-hmm. Mougam, a style of music that's common to Azerbaijan, Turkey, Iraq, Iran, mm-hmm. Iran, and some of these people I've recorded in Hungary,
Okay.
which seems to be a very good meeting place
Yeah.
of diverse influences. So multicultural diversity finds a focus, I think, in Budapest. Certainly when I'm working with guys like people from Jarbe. It's a band that seem to combine many different influences, everything from African to jazz to funk to Franz Lehrer.
Wow.
It's all sorts of stuff.
Sure.
And it's wonderful. You know, they work with people as diverse as John Nugent, who plays sax and organises the Rochester Jazz Festival. So, you know, the American influence, Morocco, people from all over, and it's a wonderful meeting place. So that's where I really encountered a guy from Azerbaijan called Malik Mansurov, who is the master of this little string instrument called guitar, which is it's related to the guitar and the sitar, and the word it originally means gut, apparently.
Yeah.
Tar, T-A-R. So, how's that for gutsy players of the electric? You know, playing right from the gut. There seems to be something in that, and working with this guy is a little bit like watching somebody who combines the skills of Ravi Shankar and John McLaughlin all rolled into one.
Oh,
so,
wow.
He's brilliant, and ironically, because I think that he's played in certain places, I think that because he's played in some of these trouble spots, I believe that because he's got stamps in his passport, he can't get an American visa. So unfortunately, that's not going to happen unless he changes his passport, of course, and loses his passport conveniently. But so far, he's never played in the US. You know, this man is no terrorist. He's exceptional, and that kind of music. Yes, you know, would that we were in a world where you know, instead of things polarizing into you know, fundamentalism and the rest of us trying to champion multiculturalism. Yeah, we're on a bit of a collision course, aren't we, with all this stuff politically? But there you are. But in music, of course, the great thing is, you know, music should be an ambassador for it. This is what we do if we put our heads together.
Absolutely. I mean, that's why it's important to have different styles like this and show people really different flavors from around the world. I mean, I think about all the different artists I listen to, and I'm always proud to say, well, I've got an artist from Andorra or Russia or wherever, just because you get different perspectives, and that's important.
Yes.
So now, it's fair to say that you're very popular today, if not more so than you've been, and this is not including the Genesis Revisited tours. I mean, before that even, you've been on an upward swing. Why do you think you're having this happen? This, I don't want to say it's a renaissance because you're never going away, but you know what I'm saying. Why is this?
I know exactly what you're saying, and I think I can answer you. My wife and I have been officially married now since 2000 and what year was it? My God, I divorced in 2007 and then remarried in 2008. No, you know what? I can't remember what year I got married. Don't tell my.
We'll edit that out.
Edit this out, please. But the fact is, we've known each other for many years, and we officialized, you know, a while back. In fact, I think it was 3 years ago now. We've been married 3 years, but you know, we've been functioning as a full-time couple since 2007. And the thing is, because she's so involved with the business and so involved with the artistic side of it, and she so loves to travel and has written books herself on history. She's interested in the roots of areas. it's extraordinary. It means there's not a place on the face of the earth that she doesn't want to visit, and she'll tell me about the history of it.
Wow.
Even the little village around the corner from her, where her family live, which is called Borough in Norfolk. There's a place called Brampton, which was originally a Roman stronghold. Now it's a tiny place of a collection of horse rearing farms, and it's just it's a very, very small rural community. And but at one time this was a Roman stronghold with a big river running through it, and what's now a little stream. All of this is fascinating. So I find myself with her influence. Watching programs about history, trying to figure out where we came from and who they were. So a lot of the influence on the album, I think, it's fair to say that it's hers. And in a way, the lovely thing is, she's so friendly and welcoming to people that we started not to draw any distinction between fans and audiences and friends.
Sure.
So we just invited everyone in as much as we could. And it's meant that I've been able to work the new technologies with her help. Everything from Facebook to Twitter to website to touring to working with the record companies, and it's been extraordinary. I think it's basically down to her. I think that because she wanted to travel, because she wanted to be part of it so much, it's an extraordinary way that it all works. I mean, obviously there are times when we're completely fried with it. This approach, you have to have your helmet on for this, but it's very, very good. If you think of it, like for instance, we're about to buy a house, Touchwood, and since we came off tour in the States last time, we decided to sell what we had. The house we were going to buy fell through, but we decided to sell anyway. So we've been on tour since we were in the States, and we will have been homeless in England for about 5 months by the time we move into our new place in April, provided the guy moves out on time and honours the agreement and all of that. So there we go. That's how life is, but hey, it's a very exciting life.
I mean, it is. It's I mean, in a way, I mean, her excitement has kind of pushed you kind of into the spotlight more, really.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've written things together, and I think we get to become each other as much as that's possible.
Sure.
I mean, I've got a temper, and I start swearing like a trooper, and then sometimes this mild-mannered girl that I married, sometimes she'll come up with the most incredible ton of expletives, and I think this is my influence on you, and of course her influence, of course, on me is usually more cultural, perhaps more sophisticated. Whereas I taught her to swear, because I want things to happen fast, She likes things to happen fast as well, because we don't have long to hang around. So I think she's lovely and she's open to people, but I suspect doesn't suffer fools greatly in a way that she might have indulged perhaps at one time. Provided people do what they say they're going to do,
right?
All is fine.
Well, that's good. And so. And the tour, you're going to get to go out again. So you're still on tour, but you're going out again in the fall. And the tour's called Acolyte to Wolflight with Genesis Revisited Tour, which is a mouthful, I will say.
It certainly is a mouthful. It started off as Acolyte to Wolflight, and then a promoter said, well, we want to have a substantial amount of the show Genesis Revisited. So in order to honor all of the gods of the future and the past. There we are. We worship at many shrines and altars.
Indeed, we do. So, how much of the new album are you going to be including? Since it's, you got the Genesis stuff, and obviously you're going to be able to do some of your stuff, which I'm sure you're anxious to do that as well.
I'm hoping to do about 4 tunes from the new one, and I also want to do a substantial amount of Acolyte because it's the 40th anniversary of that.
That would be great.
And then that leaves me with about 40% of the show as Genesis or Genesis Revisited, which will include Nat Silver on vocals as we did before, and Roy Stolt from Transatlantic Flower Kings.
Oh, that's great.
He's going to be part of the band, touring with us, for the autumn into winter. So
that's awesome.
He's going to be part of all of that, and it's great that he's offered. Frankly, wonderful. So we'll be sharing things out between us.
That's great. Yeah, I mean, I love the Flower Kings. I love everything that he does, and I know he's a massive Genesis fan. So I'm sure he was very excited to take part in that. That's awesome.
Yes, well, he's been marvelous. He says he knows the stuff, and we've worked together live. He's worked on the album, on the Return of the Giant Hogweed track. So that's been fun, and he says he knows the stuff. So all of this I find very, very interesting.
That's great.
I can't wait, to have this team on the road because.
Sure.
You have to be a little bit flexible because sometimes the guys I'm working with are very popular and very much in demand. It's a way around killing several birds with one stone in a way.
Sure. Now, what are some of your favorite songs to play live? That's a tricky question, I'm sure, but I have to ask.
Well, from my own stuff, I always enjoyed playing Every Day live. From Spectral Mornings. That album is going to be re-released in 5.1 and with a stereo remix from Stephen Wilson.
Oh, that'll be great.
Along with Please Don't Touch. I think there's going to be a box set with 4 albums in and maybe some live stuff.
Great.
So some remixes. So you're asking me about favourite tracks.
Yes.
Sometimes I can go for audience favourites or my own. I think we would try and play some things from Acolyte because it's its 40th anniversary. Some of the best things, one of the tracks, with the opening track, Ace of Wands, and the closer, we might have to do that with a male voice instead of female. Up to now it's been girls singing.
Right.
But it'll probably work with a male voice, and it's Shadow of the Hierophant.
Right.
The end of it, certainly, we can do with this team, I think. So, what other favourite tracks of mine? There's so many. I'd like to do some stuff off the new one, certainly. I'd like to be able to do the title track, which will be challenging in the least. I'd like to be able to do the opening track, Out of the Body. I'd like to be able to do Love Song to a Vampire. I would also like to be able to do The Wheels Turning. Not to mention Corinthian Fire, because there's so much of it that deserves to be done live.
Sure.
It depends whether I can get around to it all this time, because it's a tall order for a band to be able to be Genesis 1 minute and me of the past and me of now.
It's a lot of material. I mean, yours alone, set aside the Genesis stuff, you have plenty of material and great songs that deserve to be played live. I was going to throw in Emerald and Ash, which is
thank you.
far and away one of the best things I've ever heard. You just have so many great songs, and not taking anything away from the Genesis stuff, which I'm glad you do, but I am anxious to hear some of your stuff now. So it'll be good to have that.
That's interesting. Yeah, Emerald and Ash has got something that's it's got something strong.
It's one of your best.
It is one of the favorites. Yeah,
it's one of your best melodies. I mean, just vocal melody aside, I mean, just beautiful. And then it kicks into the heavier sections too, and the playing. I could go on about the song. It's just one of my favorite tracks from yours. And obviously, and I want to just jumping back. Yes, the solo on Fourth or Fifth is one of the best things I have ever heard. So I just want to. I you'd mentioned that before. I just want to throw that in at the last moment.
Thank you for mentioning those. I for many years I didn't play Fourth or Fifth, and I think what I try and do live is a gigantic crowd pleaser, in as much as that's possible, given the various choices. I have been playing that and playing the entire version of Fourth or Fifth.
Yep.
With the piano introduction. It's a great tune. It feels really good. Not just the guitar solo.
Right.
It's basically from the pen of Tony Banks, and I think it's probably his best tune ever.
Yes.
And yeah, I interpreted his melody on the guitar, playing it the way I felt that it could be played.
Yeah, the emotion on, I mean, because you hear it on, obviously, when Peter's doing the flute part and the piano part are fine, but there's something about your tone, and it's almost a sadness to it that's just incredible. So I think that's why people gravitate to it. To me, it never matters so much as to who wrote what as to how it's presented.
Yeah, I think that there's a link with that, and some of the more evocative moments that I've heard other people do. When I was playing that, I thought in some ways it sounded a little bit like Robert Fripp as well.
Yes.
There was something in Tony's melody that owed something to Eric Satie, and owed something perhaps potentially to Robert Fripp if I played it in a certain style with sustain and what have you. So those moments when Genesis and King Crimson could have been an interchangeable band were moments that inspired me greatly. And I worked with many guys from that band and many guys from Yes as well. So I think there was a sort of concurrence, perhaps, where you had complementary collisions of styles, where rock guitar spoke to classical music, and orchestras were distilled via the mellotron, and used very well, I think, by both Tony and Ian MacDonald.
Right. Yes.
I think the machine in the right hands was a great piece of kit, even though it was limited to how fast you could play on it, and what with all the attendant problems of the technology that accompanied it. So these days it's a virtual version of the thing, but nonetheless, I worked with the original tapes before they went through the Mellotron. So
that's amazing.
I did some work for Mellotron. I'm part of their sample library now, Mellotron, and in payment I said, well, would you give me the original tapes that the violins were recorded from before it goes through the Mellotron, the heads, and it's still got that Mellotron sound, but it's as clean as a distorted Mellotron can ever be.
Sure.
If you know what I mean.
Yeah.
We use it a lot to mix with other sounds. We often mix Mellotron with other things, and
that's amazing.
It's a great sound combination. We often mix Seidler check string samples with modern samples, big heavy ones with the Mellotron, and it sounds remarkably like a complete orchestra. It's rather good. But then, of course, we use real instruments too. I use real violin and
Yeah.
and whereas the other tracked up to give it the leading edge.
Absolutely.
So much of what makes up the string sounds that we use, there's an extensive string library that's part of that, and tracking up the real stuff extensively as well.
Mm-hmm. That's amazing. Well, I'm going to ask you one last question, Steve, because I know you have to go.
Okay.
Speaking of Yes, what are the chances of Squack It 2?
A Squack It 2 album. Well, I loved working with Chris.
Mm-hmm.
Been great fun, and I hope we do more things in the future. He's a guest on one of the tracks on Wolflight.
Yep.
Sounding wonderful. If you buy the album for no other reason than hearing
Sure.
the way he sounds on the chorus of A Love Song to a Vampire, it's worth it alone to hear that tone. He's a great player, and he's a very passionate player as well. I've had great fun in the studio, hours with Chris,
Mm-hmm.
doing stuff, and it's extraordinary.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think he's like a kid when he's playing this bass. He completely dwarfs the bass. We sometimes have pictures taken together, and I look like, I'm tiny. He's 4 times my size. He's got his arm around me, and it's extraordinary. But he's got this gigantic sound.
Yes.
And he's a warm-hearted guy. I've loved working with him. We've done one album, Squack It. I've worked on 1 or 2 things that he's been on.
Mm-hmm.
I've worked on stuff of his. He's worked on stuff of mine. We're pals, and it's a great combination, I think.
Absolutely. No, the first album was great. So I look forward to it. Hopefully, when you guys, obviously, you're constantly on the road, and he's doing a lot of Yes stuff, so it's tough to get something like that in. But hopefully, you will. Hopefully, you will.
Well, I hope so. I hope we'll find a way to do all of this.
Absolutely. Well, Steve, I should let you go.
Thank you. I've enjoyed talking, Rob. Thank you very much.
Thank you for calling, and good luck on with the album. I'll definitely be reviewing it for the site, and I appreciate it. Take care.
Thank you very much, Rob.
Okay,
all
take
the
care.
best.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.